It's a very painstaking exercise, but which is necessary. And again, you know, the downside of it is that it's very time-consuming, requires a lot of patience, you have to listen to a lot of people. But the upside of it is that you also deepen confidences. You get to know people.
But it also undermines the spirit of a multi-party democracy.
No, it doesn't. Actually,
if we have coalitions, it's a big threat. You know, we have just coalitions without any robust party manifestos, everyone collapsing their party to be forming one party. Then at the end of the day, we find also the parties are tapering off. You are being asked to dissolve your party.
No, it doesn't. Actually, far from it. You know, look around the world. The strong governments have been formed. I mean, look at even Israel itself. You are forced to negotiate and discuss with others to be able to form government. It forces a measure of humility, you know, on political players, and also forces political players to recognize, acknowledge, and appreciate other players in the terrain. Otherwise, you know, sometimes huge political parties and so on do not necessarily foster democracy, and then we are in that particular space where we've got to keep negotiating and talking to each other and so on, and then that forces us to build relations across the country, and then it forces us to increase participation, include others in the process. Otherwise, as I said, the downside of it is that it's sometimes painstaking, it takes a lot of time, and it's very taxing in terms of time. But truth be told, the upside of it is also that you get to know each other, you get to know the country, you get to understand people and various groups and interests, so that when you end up as a leader with all these people you have worked with, you're likely to be more responsive to people's challenges and more responsive to the circumstances that you're working with, because you have walked the journey together over a long period of time, and through that you have learned things you probably would not have learned if you just depended on you know, a huge political machine.
Thank you. Quite cogently put. I will incline to wonder, you know, many Kenyans feel that past presidencies have been over-promising and under-delivering. What is discernibly different about Dr. Fred Matiangi's candidacy, and why should Kenyans believe and also put their hope in you for a better Kenya?
I believe Kenyans are looking for a government they can trust, a government that will work for them or serve them, and not leaders who will serve themselves. I don't think Kenyans are looking for, you know, some benevolent dictator, heavenly given gift, self-praising, all-knowing, most everything, you know, to lead the country or to manage the country. Kenyans are looking for people who understand the challenges of the country and are ready to work with them to solve those problems, and not to lie to them as a way of getting along in life. The difference is that, unlike some people who are seeking leadership in this country, I have been in public service. I served as a cabinet minister for 10 years. And I confronted some of the difficult challenges at the time. I worked with the people of Kenya and Kenya's incredible public servants to solve problems. That attitude of trustworthy approach, practical, result-oriented approach to public affairs is what I think I will bring to the equation, is what I think is different. I know what the challenge is, and I am ready to face that challenge and solve the problems in a practical and serious manner. I will level with the people of Kenya. I will not tell people things that do not exist. This country is smarting from some incredible level of hypocrisy on the part of national leaders. I ask people, I've been having meetings, you know, and talking to people, even the religious leaders or the clergy, who are the ones who feel most betrayed and most abused. Because they were told good stories by some of our national leaders during the electoral period in 2022, all of which turned out to be smoke. You know, leaders who drove around and were carried out in wheelbarrows, and that time they own helicopters, pretending to be part of the, you know, the downtrodden people, when in actual fact they were not. The country is smarting from that kind of experience, and you can see how that is being transacted in public. That is the difference I bring. That I'll be very honest with the people of Kenya. I'll face our challenges honestly and very candidly, and I will go to work for the country. Because you see, sometimes you wonder whether our leaders are actually working for the country or working for their pockets. That is why, Dibal, today I brought you this as one of the things. It's very rare that people come to the studio with gifts. This is not a gift anyway, but it's a report that I think you probably may have seen. If you have not seen it, it's the Auditor General's report, a special audit on the e-citizen.
On the e-citizen.
When you look at this report, it's a classic example of why we need a new government in this country. Because everything that the Auditor General says here is basically, she describes crime, blatant crime being committed by people who have been given a responsibility. And you ask yourself the question,
we'll come to that.
Is that?
We'll come to that.
So the question is, I'm seeking leadership because I know that as a country we are better than this. We can do much better than this as a people.
Right.
And why should Kenya be denied an opportunity to have better leaders who can do a better job than this, than looting the country?
You mentioned the clergy, and 3 years ago, of course, I think you are alluding to that particular meeting you had with the clergy. You mentioned that after the COVID-19 pandemic, the new pandemic we'll be facing is the pandemic of lies. And you went full steam ahead to throw caution, warning them not to become victims of lies. So the question to you is, from your own accurate appraisement of the country right now, are Kenyans victims of lies?
Absolutely, and probably worse than that. Let me ask a very simple question. Tibal, you live in this country. If I would put a rhetorical question, what were Kenyans told in 2022 that has been done? What were Kenyans told in 2022 that has happened? In fact, the other day I saw people looking at the scorecard and saying, oh, now the administration has done 3 years and so on. And then someone was asking me, how would you score them if you had to score them? I would say I would give them a D-. Because you see, the question is, if people tell you one thing and they don't even do it, or they do the other, or lie to you blatantly, I think people must have lost count or even lost the ability to document the level of lies that the public has been told. And I ask again, what is it that Kenyans were told through that campaign period by the administration that they have done? I mean, the answer is, that's why I argue all the time that in governments that are in power or governments that are in place always campaign on their track record. They campaign on what they have done. So either incumbents gives you an opportunity to work and very easily attract re-election or additional time, or if you don't do the work, you're punished for it. So the truth is, I think Kenyans are victims of the lies they were told. And I have been vindicated that what is happening, I said clearly to the clergy that after the COVID pandemic, the next thing was an outbreak of lies in Kenya. So national politicians, saying virtually everything. I'll put so many billions this way, I'll put so many billions that way, and so on. Where are they? I said that time those are just lies. I went further at the meeting of the National Council for Administration of Justice and pointed out the fact that because we have a very weak campaign financing infrastructure in the country, we are allowing further bribery and extreme or an amount of incredible corruption to penetrate the electoral system. Politicians are buying seats. And I warned then that if you are not very careful, we will launder into public office or elective office individuals of questionable characters and so on. Money launderers, wash characters, and all that kind of thing. What has happened since that time? We have been grey-listed by the Americans.
Yeah, we'll come to it. We'll come to the grey listing.
The EU issued a report the other day saying we are a financially insecure environment for financial transactions. So I think I have been vindicated.
Right, I just wanted to, I'm trying to see some of, especially on the education, read through your manifesto and see and judge you whether you deliver or not through that particular party.
I will have one, and I'm going to declare one sooner rather than later, and I'm headed in that direction, but I'm going it in a very patient, structured, informed, consultative, careful manner. It's not one thing that you want to hurry to. It's an important decision to make, and all important decisions require care, caution, consultation, commitment.
Thank you.
That's what I'm trying to do.
The Gen Z is a very important salutary efforts that we've seen coming from them are very important voice as well. I'm wondering, what do you have up your collective sleeves as far as planning for the Gen Z is concerned, even for your own political machinery moving forward?
Even right now, you know, in planning what we are doing for the elections and so on, we are working with huge groups of young people and listening to them. When we finally develop our platform, it will include heavily and it will project the voice of young people. The discussions about Gen Z and the youth of this country, are, in my view, are more about voice, participation, trustworthy delivery and participation in public affairs, and obviously the question of inclusion, addressing the issues. When the country is looted, it's not only the adults who suffer the pain of it, the Gen Zs lose even more because they are the future for whom the resources of the country should mean more. So the issues of the Gen Zs are not necessarily different from the issues of the rest of the population, but it's a question of greater inclusion and greater voice in engaging with them and the things we do. We worked on reforming the education sector in the country, worked on providing more job opportunities in the country, worked on fine-tuning and making sure that we have a better government bureaucracy that provides equitable opportunity. If we run a government that focuses more on merit than tribe and than connections and so on, everyone benefits, including the Gen Zs. And then this is what we are talking about. We want to run a government that is completely driven by meritocracy.
All right, I want just to, even as we are looking forward to winding up, get a bit personal and ask you some of the things that maybe you believe in fervently as a person. First of all, if you may hark back to also your public service life, is there anything you regret in public life that you would like maybe to tender a public apology over to Kenyans?
No.
What do you have?
No,
there's nothing.
There's nothing I regret. I mean, I enjoyed my tour of duty in the public service every day, every minute, with all its
Seamlessly.
challenges. I enjoyed it. Of course, you know, there are challenges. We confronted, many challenges. I mean, Mutai Kawe and I, him as Cabinet Secretary for Health and me as Minister for Interior, were the ones who are mainly charged with the responsibility of managing our government response during the COVID pandemic and so on. It's a big challenge. For 8 months, people forget that for 8 months I was both the Minister for Education and Minister for Interior. Then Ogaiseri died just before the elections, and I stayed in that post for a long time, and I was at the same time Minister for Education. So my service was fine. In fact, if there's anything that I regret that I didn't do, it's an administrative or as an assignment that President Kenyatta gave us that I feel personally, if I had an opportunity in government, something I would want to do, he had wanted us to work on establishing an institution at the Kenya School of Government for continuity of public service, training and mentorship. And we were supposed to put this up so that we can tap on the wealth of the retiring public servants to mentor and train younger public servants as a way of deepening our public service tradition and the public service culture in the country. There was too much to do, so we never quite got around to establishing that particular institution. And every time I look at the public service, or every time I interact with public servants, I feel that that's something that we ought to have done. But there's nothing I regret from my public service. I mean, I enjoyed every bit of it with all its challenges, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to serve my country.
All right. Under the Big Four agenda, I think housing was a big project under Uhuru Kenyatta. And I'll ask you again, affordable housing. We've had also members from your camp saying when they get to power, they'll scrap it. Will you continue with affordable housing? Not in the manner in which it's being implemented. You could very easily emotionalize the debate, talk about the individuals or hurl insults at the individuals, in which case then the focus is lost. Thank you. Thank you. All right, but still on hovering on academia. Recently also we saw teachers who went to State House, and there are claims that each was given 10,000 shillings. If you can dial back, the time machine, and you were the CS of education, will you have accompanied the teachers?
I wouldn't do anything like that. You know, some of these things are jokes that you feel, you feel very angry about. A country like Kenya, and this is the reason why, Dibal, I'm telling you, Kenya is better than this, and we all need to summon the energies and efforts we can master to help our country move in the right direction. But let me answer your question more directly. Dibal, you take 10,000 teachers to State House. These are leaders of the teaching profession in the country, whether they are Kupet or KNUT or whatever.
Yeah, but is that a confirmable fact that they were given 10,000 shillings?
I don't know.
It's
I
very
don't
speculative.
know. I don't. It's speculative.
Yes.
I don't work for State House. I don't know those characters who do those things, and they are very liable things I wouldn't do myself. Then you go and give them. Let us assume that because we are all working on reportage. Let us assume that reportage is correct. If you have 10,000 teachers at State House, you give them 10,000 shillings. That's 100 million shillings. The teachers meant cover insurance. That line item for TSC is 17 billion shillings. If you look at how that tender was executed and how the teachers' insurance cover was given, those who ended up with that business are the people who are connected to the powers that be. Mm-hmm. The teachers are not getting any health services. Before I came here this morning, I was talking to a friend of mine who has just paid a bill of 100,000 for his sister, a teacher who was admitted the cover could not pay. Now, 17 billion, probably looted or probably stolen through all manner of connections. And then 100 million for teachers, leaders, each one of them getting 10,000 shillings. That 10,000 shillings cannot even pay their bill tomorrow if they are sick. Why do we even bribe? Why does a government bribe people? Why as a government do you bribe people?
Why should we be raising hesitation if we have the teachers who are going there? We've had also the business community going there to meet the president. Other communities have been going there. So why is everyone really taking special umbrage with the teachers going to State House?
No, by the way,
would you?
By the way, I wouldn't have a problem. The president should meet his citizens because those are the people who have employed him. But the question is this: is that the format in which management of issues is supposed to be done? Are we supposed to do that? Would you get 55 million people to State House every other day and give them 10,000 shillings each? Or else, if you wanted to be fair to the teachers, then surely then every teacher should find in their bank account 10,000 shillings at the end of this month, since the president is behaving like Father Christmas and is happy enough to give them 10,000 shillings each. Why give only those ones who are the leaders? Let then, if it's a gift from a magnanimous, benevolent, God-sent president, let then each one of them get 10,000 shillings in their account. The question I'm asking is that really the right way we should manage public affairs? If you ask me, in my honest opinion, I don't know, but in my honest opinion, I don't think it's the right way. So you ask me the question, is that something I would do? The answer is no, I wouldn't do it. Because it doesn't make any sense at all. Because you have people in a jamboree out there. Basically, it's a, if you allow me to say, it's a very old-style way of power display and some sort of irrelevant public relations. You almost feel like we are getting to an era in our country, we have government by bribery and public relations. So that you know, and by the way, if you want to be analytical, you answer the question, why is that being done? Why must you do it? Why must you always boss people around, give them money and so on? Governments do things, and when people feel the things they do and go ahead, leaders have conversations with the other leaders and move the country forward. But you see, if you are bossing people up and down, giving them money in an unsustainable manner, by the way, because you see, as I said, will you get 55 million people to State House and give them 10,000 shillings? Anyway, the question you ask directly is, would I do it? And I've told you I wouldn't.
You wouldn't, but you've always had scruples as well with the visitation of the deputy president in your domain, in your turf, going back in Kisii. Yeah, you on record said they've been there like 9 times and dishing out, 100 shillings, 64 shillings. Empowering. What is this empowerment that they are talking? Why would you have scruples with that as well?
By the way, I have no scruples about that lovable and bizarre all the time as a responsible citizen of these countries. And by the way, that is the basis on which I say Kenya is surely better than this. We can do better things than this. We are capable of being better people, managing our country better than this. How can you wake up every week you are the deputy president of the country. You are flying to a particular corner of the country. Like now I was telling people from my neck of the goods that they have become suddenly objects of love from government. They are loved so much. The government people are there every other day. They fly in helicopters. They arrive there. One day they were in 9 choppers. They land there. And they love them so much, they arrive and give them 64 bob each. Then they give them 100 shillings each. That is how they love them so much. They want them to support them. Honestly, I don't know anything more silly than that. And then secondly, the way you run public affairs and the way you want to run public affairs is government get some work done. And it is obviously for a particular reason why that is being done. And that is not improving the lives of those people in any material way. To arrive there and do those kinds of things is actually to abuse the intelligence of those people. And no wonder all the time they're using animal imagery. It's because they look at these people as animals. It's the way you get your cows and you give them napier grass so that you can milk them. And and so on. So these people, you arrive, you give them 64 bob or 100 bob and hope that they will impoverish. It's a very, if you were to analyze it, it's a very Stalinist way, impoverish people into subservience. Don't do anything, don't give them services, they are so poor, so that when you arrive with 100 shillings, they are supposed to kneel down and worship you. 62 years after independence, is that how we are supposed to be managing our public affairs? Honestly, I was saying, if you calculate in the last 2 months or so, if you look at the deployment of ferrying trips to State House from my part of the country, if you have deployed 350 million shillings, let us assume Dibal, we are not foolish people. If you have deployed 350 million shillings in that kind of endeavor, take 10 million shillings to a school, each school. You will do 35 secondary schools in those 2 counties of Nyamira and Kisii. And each one of them will have a very good laboratory, and they would have facilities, and you will alleviate some of the challenges that the parents have in that particular place. Leadership is about problem solving. And what problem do you solve with 64 shillings? It's a joke.
So honestly, you're putting it to us that this is a Starling sort of, system of governance where you're defrocking, I know there's this analogy they normally, quote, I don't know how accurate it is, of a chicken being, denuded, defrocked. And he says, he was telling his military man that you can see the way I'm trying to, defrock this chicken. And afterwards, when now it is so denuded, and without any feathers, you still drop, the maize grains for the chicken to come and it will come to your feet to come and eat it again. Is this what politicians are doing? Honestly,
my brother, what's the difference? Let me ask you.
So is it really backed in our system?
What's the difference? It's a style. It is a political ecosystem that has been set by the leaders of the day. The ecosystem is driven by, don't reason with people. Don't engage with them and don't work for them. You don't have to work for them. Why work for them? Loot their money and loot their wealth. And small change you say from the looting, you can show it off by giving the money. And when you give them that 100 shillings or 200 bob, you are such a hero. You are supposed to be worshipped because you are called a great man because you are the one who brought 100 bob or who brought 64 shillings. And not when you do tangible things. Do you imagine, and I want you for a moment to pause, fortunately for us, those of us who are in this day and age, we have lived through administrations where work has been done. Do you actually imagine, do you foresee, if you close your eyes in your mind's eye, President Mwai Kibaki be doing those kinds of things? Do you imagine President Uhuru Kenyatta, for example, spending time, smiling and feeling nice that people are being given 200 bob, 100 bob? What are we actually doing with our people? And yet, we would put these resources in tangible development work and then also have conversations with our people. There's nothing wrong with doing political work and even trying to convince people to get out of what they believe to do something else. But is this the way? And how long will you do that? And to what effect in the long run? And then in the process, Dibal, 2/3 of the things that are being said there are just lies. There's no truth in it. If I come to your district and tell you I'm going to do a road from here to that point, these days, the budget is in Parliament, the figures are there, and people can go and check what is being done there. So For me, it is also a question of, it's three things. Number one, it is how we are degenerating as a society, all of us, especially our leaders, and in the attitude with the people they lead, how we are degenerating. And I'm concerned about this in a very, as about deep state are the ones in government and in charge. How is it that 6 months later, they have never published what that deep state was about and told everybody what it was all about? At the right time, there are questions I'm going to ask.
There were promissory notes that, yes, we will have, a state capture
commission of inquiry.
Yes, commission of
and
inquiry.
I've been waiting because I was one of those who was supposed to go before that commission of inquiry with President Kenyatta and the late General Gola and so on. I have been waiting for it so that we go before it and put our piece and tell the country what we know about everything and about others. I've not seen it. And in any case, there are so many accusations that were made during that time, including a famous allegation, if you remember, that senior government officers were meeting at some hotel on Thika Road, plotting the assassination of a senior government official. People were even harassed. Some of my colleagues in cabinet went to DCI to record statements because purportedly they were preparing or planning an assassination. How is it that, because now the instruments of power are on the other side, and the leaders who are accusing us that day are the ones who are in the security sector, now they are the leaders. How come they have never published a report about that assassination attempt? Because they don't need anybody's permission to publish it. And all those things you are saying vindicate what I said. I told Kenyans...
But going by the contract killings that we are seeing, of course, this is not the first time. We have a lawyer, Bobu, who has been killed. We have the MP, of course, who had been killed. How then are we sure if these allegations were not true, even then?
Why can't they put the information in the public domain? Because you see, whose permission do you need? I keep asking myself every time, unangoja filimbi ya nani? Whose wings are you waiting for? Put the information that you have in the public domain and say, you can even actually publish a DCI report and say, it said XYZ, this was the deep state, it was operating like this, and so on and so forth. You see, at that particular time, all manner of accusations were flying around. We were even being accused of how we were plotting to rig the election and steal the election and so on. Now, I am not even anywhere near power. So why can't that report be published so that people can see, yes, by the way, this is the information we stumbled upon. Matiangi was meeting with Kibicho and so on, and so this is what they were plotting and stuff like that. All these were just lies, the things told because of elections and drama. The import of that now, because that is now stuff that is gone, the lesson from that is for Kenyans to learn and be very careful about things that people tell them. And also, the Bible is the most quoted book in this country by people. The same Bible, I think, says somewhere that by their works you shall know them. You now know the works of those who are saying those things, so you know who they are. They said those things and so on. Now, another season is arriving when they will say other things. So it's upon the people of Kenya to decide whether they are believable people.
Hark you back to your docket in the Ministry of Interior.
Yeah.
Huduma number. It was Huduma number. Mm-hmm. It was a spectacular failure.
What is the scientific basis of that conclusion?
I took my sleep. I've never had my Huduma number until today.
By the time we come,
my data, I don't know where it is today. When you're talking about data protection, you are the man, you are the figure, and you're very coercive. And you're saying that if we don't pick up this number, if anyone in this country does not have an Huduma number, he will not be accessing services from government. Wasn't that manipulation and coercive?
No, it wasn't at all.
So you're talking about voluntary, this is mandatory. So why were we swinging on pendulums?
No, by the way, let me explain to you. And I think it's very important to have facts about something before you make conclusions. The intention behind the Huduma number registration, the tragedy is that this administration did not complete that, and they started innovations around it, and I'll explain to it if you give me time, was to create what we call a single source of truth, a UPI, a unique personal identifier for everyone, so that you aggregate all the data sets we have from the births and deaths, registration of IDs, the driving licenses, passports, anti-migration, and so on. If you lived in countries which have achieved this, like now India, Finland, of course the US is the one that started this long time ago. In the US, you are given something called a social security number.
Yes.
With a social security number in any office you go, once you give your social security number, your details are very easily accessed and you can get services easily. Someone doesn't have to send you home to bring your ID, your driver's license, your birth certificate and so on, because all that data and information is available in a single file that you will get when you give your social security number. We wanted Kenyans to get one number. That number is what they would use in everything that they would do. But the government invested very heavily in the resources of integrating the data sets. And actually we did, because there are people who have an Huduma card. I have one. And we did 13 million of those cards. In other words, the process was meticulous in integrating the data sets. Once we get all your data, as Dibal, we give you an Huduma card and a number. We even acquired our own capability through our security agencies to produce those cards and to produce those numbers here in Nairobi. Now, the challenge, in my view, is that when our new national leaders came in, they had different ideas, or because of procurement interest or because of deals they wanted, they abandoned that process and they started talking about Maisha number or whatever it is they call it. That is just basically an excuse to generate an opportunity for a tender to do that. If they had stayed on that trajectory, the resources are available. And by the way, Dibal, the resources are not Fred Matiangi's resources or Uhuru Kenyatta's resources. They are resources that belong to the people of Kenya. The infrastructure that was created is available. No one went away with it. And I'm told that even when they came into office, they were briefed about that, they inspected those resources, and the infrastructure is available. Why they have not completed that process, I frankly do not know. Yet, I don't know anything that would stop them from completing that process and completing the issuance of the Huduma card. And I'm willing to say this, and I can repeat it anywhere in public, that there was nothing more needed, and there was no need for a new tender to do anything. All they needed to do is to continue the process of integrating the data sets that we were doing, because we had already done over 13 million of those, and by this time they will have completed integrating all of them. Every Kenyan will be having an Huduma number.
So, still under your watch, we had legal issues, of course. I don't know what has been your reaction, because that has been your docket as well. People are saying this did not just blow up in this current regime. It must have been actually happening way before this regime came to power. It is so systemic. It is shocking. Bodies are still being exhumed. And there's a huge the geographical expanse of the Shakahola. Now we have Binzaro again. Kenyans are wondering, did the Ministry of Interior had no sodding idea what was happening on the ground? And from your own assessment again, if it blew up at the current particular regime and the police, it was unbeknownst to the police that this thing was happening. People are reporting there are people and children who are disappearing, yet there was no immediate intervention that was coming from the security officers. This blow up, did it just happen, or it was a burning embers that was a tinderbox waiting to explode?
I will, Dibal, I'm paranoid about facts.
Paranoid?
Yes, because when we deal with issues, we must be very factual. There is a report of the county security team that was issued at the beginning of 2023. I was not the cabinet secretary for Interior in 2023, which was a warning shot that there was some fishy activity that were happening in that particular place. I wasn't the Minister for Interior in 2023 when that report was written. When this matter broke out, the county security team in that particular region raised issues that they had actually warned, and they had filed a report on that particular incident early before Shakahola occurred. I was not the cabinet secretary for Interior in 2023, at the beginning of 2023. The simple question is this. I honestly want to say this, and I'll look Kenyans in the face and say this. It will not happen under my word. If I had received that report myself as the minister, if I had been the minister myself at that particular time, I would have acted on that particular report. I used to hold quarterly meetings with the regional commissioners And then no monthly meetings with the regional commissioners, then quarterly meetings with the county commissioners and regional commissioners together. When county security teams raise issues about things that are happening in their respective jurisdiction, the first thing you do is go and look at what is going on. There is even an intelligence report that was done by NIS on the matter. Somebody somewhere did not do their homework, but it's not me. I was not the Minister for Interior at that particular time. And I would like to challenge anybody who says that it happened under my watch to produce the facts about it. The truth of the matter is this.
Were you presiding over, you as the Chief Cabinet Secretary, Aisha Jumwa? Because she had raised this alarm before.
Raised it to who?
Is in public record. Speaking about, Pastor Mackenzie and some very ulterior things that were happening with that particular cult.
It's very nice to hear these political statements from people after the fact. The truth of the matter is this. The behavior of, if this matter was investigated, and this is why, by the way, I have been thinking that it is unfair that Parliament has not moved on some of these issues. Because when you look at the architecture of our Constitution, I think Parliament is a very powerful institution. When we were in Cabinet, we really dreaded Parliament. Because the Parliament is the one institution that can sack you, and even the President will not have recourse.
In Jubilee Party?
When was I in the Jubilee Party?
Because we've been seeing, no. The perception is, he's running maybe with the ticket of a Jubilee Party. And we've heard the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party saying, of course, we're fronting Fred Matiangi. Your correlations also with the presidents, the former president as well. There has been that perception. I'm not saying you're in a Jubilee Party. Are you running under, or are you considering running under Jubilee Party?
I've answered this question elsewhere, and the same answer I will give you.
Please do.
As I said, in our country, first of all, it's since the advent of multi-party politics, it isn't common that you would run on one party. You've got to work and build coalitions and have discussions with a number of people. The other parties that have said that they would not mind me being their presidential candidate. But the truth of the matter, as I've said several times before, I was a cabinet minister under the Jubilee administration. I implemented the Jubilee manifesto, worked under the Jubilee president. So for all intents and purposes, actually, my orientation to public service and my orientation to national affairs is essentially contextualized within Jubilee party practice. So if somebody were to talk about my political sympathies and party political sympathies,
it leans more to Jubilee.
They would lean obviously more towards Jubilee, because if I didn't accept Jubilee's policies and manifesto, why would I serve as a cabinet minister under Jubilee administration? So the discussions have been going on, and I've been discussing with a number of people, and the Secretary General of Jubilee has rightly, and within his his own right as a leader in this country and as a public person, expressed his interest and his views, and said, in his view, and according to members of Jubilee, they would think that I would be their presidential candidate, which is their right. Other people have done that. Peter Munya, who's the party leader of PNU, said that the other day clearly, that, we in PNU, our presidential candidate will be Fred Matiangi, we will support him. The other parties who have said that, discussions are going on. I know that in the long run, I will run, or I will, be a candidate from a particular party. But in this phase of my present life, I am engaged in conversations and discussions with a number of political players with a view to finally creating a framework or going into national contestation through a framework of a coalition. But very, very soon, I am going to make public my final decision on that matter and my final membership of a party on that particular matter. And we will go forward. I'll continue to work with the others, on national politics. And by the way, as I said earlier, I don't know why anyone would be impatient about this matter, because these negotiations and these discussions are painstaking and they take a long time. You don't have to hurry them. You saw what happened in 2002. You saw what happened in 2017 and 2013, sorry. and so on. If the discussions continue even up to the last quarter of the election year, and then a decision is made at that particular time. So no one has lost time, there is no time here, and so on. Besides, anyway, as I normally say.
But if you're still flying under the perception of a Jubilee party, because it's lost favor in the Mount Kenya region as it is right now, if you go on the ground, there's a huge chasm that is developing between the Jubilee party, even as they try to revive it again, and the DCP. Don't you think also that is also bringing a very negative cloud bank hanging over you with the tag of a Jubilee party?
I will cross the bridge when I come to it. And
it might be too late to cross that bridge if you don't make a decision right now.
Dibal, you are not a prophet, and you are not a political genius or advisor who, or sage who should advise people on when to make political decisions. The question is this: I'm very realistic and pragmatic about this. And what you are saying is your perception. It is not the reality. It may not be the science of it. I think we are better off, even in politics, engaging in a very pragmatic and realistic manner, in the manner in which we do things. I'm working with a lot of people. I'm having conversations with a lot of people. Many of them are very experienced political players and people who actually understand this country and have taken time to study it and know what is happening. I'm also engaged in conversations with people, even from that part of the country that you're talking about. I don't get that impression that you're airing, but the truth of the matter is this: we will make that decision when that time comes, and then once we make that decision, we will deal with the reality at that particular time and the consequences of that decision. There is no single decision you will make in this life that doesn't have consequences. I am prepared to go before the people of Kenya honestly and sincerely, and ask them for support and ask them for their vote, to become their leader. And they will judge me by what they know, and they will judge me by the content of my character. In any case, by the way, there are about 89 political parties in this country, more parties than there are parties in the whole of Europe. Does that mean that we are more democratic than most of Europe is? This political party thing, I have often said, is something that we also need to be very careful about. Because, people bandy around here and elect people on the basis of this. There are characters, despicable characters in the political practice right now, who are dancing around committing crimes and so on. Tomorrow, they will remove the uniforms they are wearing and they will, wear new party uniforms. So they become suddenly angels because of that. So we should also look at the kind of weight we are placing to this. And in my view, our discussion on this matter is actually spending too much time on an issue that I think is not substantively and in the long run, not materially important. What is materially important is people would say, like it was said on 14th of October 2002, Kibaki Tosha. The vehicle that Kibaki now moved on to is another matter. People look at the content of the character of the leader and the principles and the capacity of that leader before you even begin to look for the party. You can come here in a party called Jerusalem, but if you are a thief and some despicable character, your Jerusalem party doesn't make you a holy fellow and a guy who should be a leader, as it were. So Kenyans are smarter than we think sometimes. Let's not spend so much time on this. Let's keep walking and keep talking to people. I value the conversations with leaders more than these petty things about parties and what people tell you, what ordinary people tell you, and you listen to them, whether they're market women or whatever. They will be more inclined to whether or not they trust you as the leader, you come in a party called Jerusalem. You don't become any more trustworthy because your party is called Jerusalem. But anyway.
But the input of a party is a manifesto, is how we'll actually judge you. And I have heard you from previous interviews as well on the question of River Yala. What would you tell Kenyans about, because this was happening also under your watch, this Ministry of Interior, that you had no sodding idea about these incidences of the retrieved bodies from River Yala?
Immediately it came to our notice. We did what the law required us to do, namely launch immediately an investigation into the matter. By the way, the other day I was joking in my mind about this issue, and I asked for records because I had got some research assistant to dig up the records, not just on the issue of the River Yala, but how many times I went to Parliament as Minister for Interior to answer questions on forced disappearances, people who had who could not be accounted for, and so on. And I discovered that in my tenure, I had been invited to Parliament 3 times on issues related to the forced disappearances individuals who could not be accounted for. And out of this, actually, it's only one incident I can recollect when a member of parliament, I think from the northeastern part of the country, was very accurate on the information that they had on these forced disappearances and so on. You see, the issue is this. Throughout life, everywhere you go, even since we started this interview, some crime has been committed somewhere. The question is not whether or not the crime has been committed. The question is, what did you do when that crime was committed? And then secondly, if really you were in the line to take action at that point in time, what action did you take? And because some of these actions are not protected by the statute of limitation, it can follow you even 20 or 30 or 40 years even after you have left the office. Mm-hmm. That is why I am the first one to tell people we acted. This matter, I wouldn't not say that we did not know. We got to know about it. All of us in the National Security Council discussed this matter. If you go to the records of the National Security Council, you'll find minutes during which we discussed this matter. The Inspector General of Police, the DCI came on board, the Director of Intelligence then, and everybody. And we concluded at that particular time as a National Security Council that between a public inquiry and an investigation that would file a report, let's open a file and commence investigations on the matter. And as I've said before, we never left, government is acting in perpetuity. It exists beyond the individuals who are in office at that point in time. If an issue has happened, for example, here, and people feel it has not been properly investigated, nothing stops the government from investigating it afresh if they feel there's new evidence coming into it and so on and so forth. On this particular one, I have called for a public inquiry on the matter so that if people have information that's contrary to what I am giving, they make it out in public. Or if people know that there was either laxity or dereliction of duty on the part of those who are supposed to act, they demonstrate it in a public inquiry or they demonstrate it in a public institution. We acted as the law required us to act. It's like people ask me, Dibal, how did you people allow, sometimes I go to meetings and people tell me, where were you when the elections were happening? We don't believe these elections were free and fair. The election could have been rigged. How did you as a government allow, like someone was telling me the other day, you asked an explanation. How did this happen? And I tell them, go and read the law and have someone help you understand it. When the electoral period begins, there are powers you will not exercise as Minister for Interior. Elections are a matter of the chairman of the Electoral Commission and the Commission. They begin acting. I can't, under the law, I can't order the chairman of the Electoral of IEBC. If, for example, I also wonder, like in the case of 2022, I also ask the question, why did the IBC suspend the gubernatorial election in Kakamega and Mombasa? To this day, I don't understand. I was not the chairman of IBC. I was not even a commissioner. I didn't have powers to ask the question, or I didn't have powers to force the late Chebukati and his people to do something. There's nothing I could do. The law has got the same shortcomings. It places you within a framework where you have to act within the powers that you have at that point in time. The question is, did you act? Yes. If people feel it was insufficient action, that's why I'm saying let's have a public inquiry.
So you feel it was insufficient from your assessment?
No. I mean, the question is, I believe
you don't take responsibility?
I believe we did what we were expected to do. And I believe, let me say this on record, we acted very responsibly, like any responsible government would act. Now, if someone has got contrarily...
what is responsibly? Because if the rivers is, keep on, shoring up the bodies, they're being found time and time and again. What do you characterize as you acted responsibly? And there is no accountability.
If an investigation is going on, Dibal, I want to go over this argument in a very patient manner. If a crime has been committed, you are a responsible person in that particular docket. You occasion an investigation of that crime, and the investigation points you to a particular destination. If the investigation say it is Dibal who killed those people, the law takes over from there, and Dibal is arrested and prosecuted. If, as a minister, I have gone to the National Security Council, and the matter has been raised there by security chiefs, all of whom sit at the National Security Council, we have discussed the matter. Beyond that decision that let this matter be investigated and let the file be open, until the matter has been logically investigated and culprits have been found.
But we have an issue.
I want to be.
Let me just butt in. We have an issue also who is investigating, because we have the National Coroner's Act right now that has never been operationalized. If we had an independent body, we have a forensic laboratory to try and investigate these bodies that were coming from River Yala, we'll, as Kenyans, will feel we are satisfied because we have a Director General who is independent. But if you're telling us about investigations that is being carried out from your own security agencies, how do we know there is no cover-up of what was happening on River Yala? And again, will tell us why the National Coroner's Act has not been operationalized. Since also when, if I may remember, you may correct me as well, it was enacted. Up to now, we should be having a forensic laboratory that is well equipped and to have independent Coroner Director General.
We can split hairs on this issue until the cows come home. The point is this, very plain and straightforward. There's some strange imagination that people have that I'm not able to deal with. The law is as clear as it is. I didn't write it. And then second, when you go into an office, you act, as I said, responsibly. You ask yourself, what does the law allow me to do here? There are some cases where you would even suspect that this matter has been done by so-and-so, or it has gone this direction. You patiently say, the law requires me to investigate this matter and come to a conclusion on the situation. You see, all those issues you're asking me about the coroner's office, why it doesn't exist, and so on. I am not a minister. I am an ordinary individual. I left that docket 3 years ago.
Yes, you did, but of course, the Act, even when the Act came into place, you were not the minister then?
And then secondly also, please let's stick with the issue that we are dealing with first. The investigations that have happened, there are so many investigations that are not complete because of the complexities of the crimes that have happened before. I have often pointed this out and I've pointed out all the time. There is no minister who has powers to either expedite or take over the investigations themselves and go and do them because you are either unhappy about the pace that they are following or you know that they should be done in a particular way. We all submit ourselves to the law. And how we submit ourselves to the law is that the DCI opens the file and stays on the matter until they get the culprit. If the culprit include the minister is not above the law. He is punished or prosecuted. Honestly, I don't know what we are discussing on this matter because beyond the action of the National Security Council, there is nothing else the council could do at that particular time except insist on those investigations to be done. Mm-hmm. Crimes are not going to end today or tomorrow. They will be committed all the time. The question usually is, what did you do? Even all these matters on forced disappearances, the question the public keeps asking all the time is that, is due process being followed? Are investigations being done? Are we going to the logical conclusion of this matter? That's very carefully, and we spend a lot of time. We even actually had internationally reputable consultants advising on this matter. We engaged with even the opposition in Parliament at that particular time, and the idea of a forced contribution we discovered couldn't work. We finally settled on a voluntary contribution scheme, and then to now start working on a small team in cabinet was put together. We didn't get to finish it by the time we were leaving office, to work together on a package of incentives and to work with other resource mobilization institutions like SACCOs and so on to see how best we can now do targeted investment in housing in the country to increase home ownership and so on. I have to be very honest, we can't continue the housing arrangement the way it's being done right now. Mm-hmm. Burdensome in terms of taxation, convoluted, and you can see clearly the way it's being done, it's intended to benefit suppliers more than look at the home ownership. Very little of it makes sense in the way it's being implemented. I would rather go to the model of a voluntary contribution as it were than this forced. people would make arguments they would make, but for sure I wouldn't continue it in the manner in which it's being implemented right now.
All right, so we're also looking at a very polarized world that we're in, if we may just step out now from our boundaries here in the country. And the question of whether we'll be facing the West or the East will come to bear to you as well. And I wanted to know, looking at the configuration that is happening and the foreign policy even of our country, and we've seen what is happening with the USA as it stands right now with China, what will be your take? What will be your stand? Where will you be facing?
I would go back to, the position that President Uhuru Kenyatta articulated was essentially a government's position as a government generally. And that's the mantra that